Welcome everyone, Fred Gleek here with Bill DeWeese. And before we officially get started at the top of the hour, Bill, say hello to all our guests here.
Turn the camera on here. Here we go. Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome. So glad to have you here tonight.
And so we always like to find out, like, who's here from where, and just tell us who you are and where you're from in the chat, in the question box, the chat box. From Bill from Arizona. Okay, good. And Tom from Oregon. Specificity, what city? I've been to Grants Pass. Eugene. Okay, cool. Dan from Kansas. Kansas is a large state, though. Wichita. Topeka. Where? Sonia from Huntsville. Phoenix. Checking in. Danny from Central. Okay, Rich, a lot of people from all over the place. Every once in a while we have people. Eric says, looking good, Bill. There you go.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, he wouldn't be looking better, though, if he was sporting the Boston t-shirt, which I've yet to see, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I need to, yeah. Well,
Wake that up.
I need to, yeah. I need to clean up and shave first to be worthy of wearing the Boston t-shirt.
Okay, Toronto checking in. Got a Jim from Anderson, Indiana. Alicia from Houston. Lots of Charlie from, nah, I like that. Charlie gives me a pronunciation guide. Y-Rock. Charlie from Philly. Thank you, guys. Once you grew up in Boston, good. Unable to hear you? Well, that has got to be, I think, your issue, because I think we're ready to go. So check that out, Eric. I'll try and contact you. But can everybody hear me? Just put yes, just to make sure it's just not everybody's problem. There we go. Okay, thanks, guys. Bill, take it away.
Hey, guys. Welcome. So glad you took a few minutes out of your evening to be here. I appreciate it. As one broadcaster, at least former broadcaster, to another, whether it be past or present, welcome to Broadcaster to Voice Talent. I just want to make a statement here before we get started, and then I'll explain why I'm making that statement. I was just thinking that today, I actually made more money today than I used to make an entire week when I left broadcasting back in 2005. Now, granted, with, you have to factor in a little bit of inflation there. And I don't say that because I think, not because of me or anything special about me. As a matter of fact, that's the whole point. I don't think I am anything special. There are some of you guys on this webinar tonight who have more innate, natural, God-given talent than I have. Some of you with less. But the point is, and what we'll talk about tonight, is how you can take that and the knowledge and the background that you have and parlay that, retool yourself into a successful voiceover talent. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And just to kind of put things in context, let me just give you a little bit of brief background about myself. And in telling you this, just hopefully you'll be able to, I think you'll be able to identify with, where I've come from, because we've probably had some similarities along the way. I decided at a very early age, like 14, I wanted to be a DJ. I knew it. That's what I wanted to be. I was obsessed with radio. I listened to it all the time. That's all I cared to do. When I was in college, I was able to actually get a job as a commercial copywriter for a radio station there in the market in which I was in. And then upon graduating, immediately got right into radio. As a matter of fact, I remember I got married when I was in college. Vicki and I got married when we were 20. We were very young. But my first job interview, I remember I was hired. I was hired on the spot. I was so excited. I drove home and told Vicki, I said, Vicki, I start tomorrow morning doing mornings on this radio station. And I was so excited. Her first question was, so how much are they paying you? To which I responded, I have no idea. Nor do I care. I got a job. That's how obsessed I was about radio. Now, as time went by, that little thing about the money became a little more important. But I was just glad to be doing it. And since I worked in all areas of radio between 80 and 2005, I mean, literally everything from, as I mentioned, commercial copywriter. I was a program director for most of those years, mornings and about every other day part you can imagine. Eventually was a station manager when I retired. And then I started in voiceover in 2006 after doing a short stint working for a business consulting firm in Chicago, as well as a corporate educational instructional design company. So there's a couple of general thoughts before we get into specifics. After 13 years in voiceover and reflecting back on my career in broadcasting, and as much as I loved it, and I did love it, and I know you guys love it too, that's why you did it. You did it, there's a passion about working behind a microphone. Whatever that reason that drove us to do that, we love that. But it was definitely a paycheck to paycheck career. Can you identify with that? Anybody? I mean, I wish I could do a show of hands. It was a paycheck to paycheck career. It was a journeyman's life. To improve and to advance in your career, usually it required that you be willing and flexible, ready to move from market to market to market. I worked in a couple of different markets, but I worked in about 6 different radio stations over the course of my career, always looking for that next, best gig. And I also learned once jumping into voiceover, I thought voiceover would be almost exactly the same as working in radio, but it had less to do with broadcast had less to do with the voiceover industry than I ever could have imagined. And I was never paid, and I'd love to know your response to this. I was never paid extra to record commercials and spots, and I recorded thousands and thousands of them over my career as a broadcaster. I mean, I worked a lot of hours. I remember, being on salary and working 10 and 12-hour days and recording. I'd spend 4 hours doing my show and then another 4 or 5, 6 hours in the production studio writing and recording commercials. And I never made an extra dime recording those. Can you relate to that? Yeah, I thought maybe you could. Two quick stories, which I think will set up what we're going to talk about today, because I want you to understand a couple of things that are really key in transitioning, where you're at from broadcast, whether you're in it now or you've been in it, to, let me just turn off seeing my face on the screen is distracting me and not in a good way. I remember attending it was a radio convention in Nashville. This is the mid-90s, and there was a workshop specifically held by a couple of successful voiceover talent. And I remember they said, if you want to do this, you really need to have a pro studio and you need to expect to invest $50,000 in a home studio. And I was making literally half that at the time. And I thought just for monetary purposes alone, I could never work in voiceover. And so that was a big punch in the gut. And then I remember, in 1991, working at a radio station, there was a local guy. There's a voiceover guy that was like so prominent in Columbus, Ohio. He was on everything. And I remember he came into the radio station. I didn't know who he was. And somebody said, "You know who that guy is, don't you?" And I said, "No, I have no idea." And he said, "Well, that's such and such, the guy that does all the voiceover work, practically in Columbus. And he makes like $50,000 a year." And back then, again, that was more than twice of what I was making. And I thought, to me, it just seemed like such a pipe dream. And so I was always focused on the idea of equipment and voice. I thought, well, I've got to have a really unique and a special voice. I thought that would be important, like this guy who was so successful that I knew of, there in my market of Columbus. And I also thought it took all of this unbelievable equipment that cost a small fortune. And so those were the two guiding thoughts that I had that I thought were necessary to be successful in voiceover. And how wrong I was. I could not have been more wrong about that. There are some challenges as you guys are thinking about building something either in parallel to your current broadcast career, which I think would be sweet, wouldn't it, to work a couple hours a week and be able to make a really nice part-time income. Or some of you guys may want to make a full-time transition and really establish yourself as a really, to have a really lucrative career in voiceover. And one of the things in transitioning that you have to deal with, because I see this over and over again, is the obsession that most broadcasters have, be it radio or television, with gear. It's this insatiable desire for the latest and greatest gear. And this goes not just for broadcasters, but even for some of our old-time voiceover folk who have been doing this for like 30 years. And I don't want to mention any names, but I was having a conversation a while back with a guy that most of you guys would know who he is. Very, very, very high profile voiceover talent, and was very, very successful back in the day. And it seemed like the conversation always came back to equipment. He was talking about, well, he's got this mic and he just ordered this equipment. And it was this obsession with equipment and having the right equipment. And usually that is meaning expensive equipment. But I want to share with you something that I hope will instill at least a bit of hope in you when it comes to this idea of home studios and creating a pro sound, but not having to spend a fortune and mortgage your house to do it. What I'm showing you now is what I started with in my voiceover career in 2005. What you're looking at specifically And by the way, don't go out and buy this stuff because there's newer, better, and still cheap stuff out there today. A lot of people say, hey, I went out and bought that Marshall MXL 2001 mic. I don't necessarily recommend doing that. That's an old mic, and they've got better stuff since then. But that's a mic that you can look it up on eBay right now, and you can buy it for $60. I had a Behringer Eurorack mixer. That's like a $35 thing that you can buy on Amazon. I had an old Windows computer that I bought used for $75. And I set up in our bedroom closet. And that was my studio for about 4 years. And here's the good news. I built a 6-figure business with that equipment. I didn't have the latest, greatest. I didn't have thousands of dollars invested. I literally started my studio with $300. Here's the thing you have to understand. Having a great microphone does not ensure a successful voiceover career. I'm going to repeat that. Having a great microphone does not ensure a great voiceover career. As a matter of fact, the more money you spend on a mic, the better the mic, the more attention you have to pay to the space in which you work, which brings me to another important point, and that is this. When it comes to creating quality audio, and make no mistake, it is absolutely of supreme importance that you have quality audio, which has, believe it or not, very little to do with how much money you spend. It has to do with the space in which you operate. I will take a cheap mic in a great space any day over an expensive microphone in a bad space. What do I mean by that? Good space, bad space. A good space has two qualities. Number one, it is quiet. It is very quiet. Now, we all work from home, so we all have to deal with barking dogs, snow blowers, lawn mowers, kids outside playing, airplanes flying over, cars and trucks. We've all got that to deal with. But it's a matter of finding the most quiet place that you can find within your home, which may be a basement, which is where I'm at. You may not have a basement. It may be a spare bedroom, or like I started, like in the bedroom closet. But having a quiet space, that's where it begins. The second thing is acoustic treatment. And what I mean by that is minimizing sound reflections, the bouncing of your voice off the walls that creates that boxy, reverberant sound, which we don't want. And of course, the clothing in the walk-in closet did the trick for me. But a lot of people use moving blankets. You can certainly buy acoustic foam. If you do buy acoustic foam, don't buy the cheap stuff because it's essentially useless. I'm a big fan of Auralex, but you don't have to invest in expensive acoustic foam. That's really my point. There are other great options out there. I remember I used a Walmart mattress topper and put it up on the wall behind my microphone in that closet studio to help stop those reflections. So I've been around, being a broadcaster and being around broadcasters, I know that the first thing on a broadcaster's mind is equipment. And I just want you to know that going out and investing in all this stuff, these compressors and EQs and these interfaces, and you need equipment, don't get me wrong, but just because you're spending X amount of money and all this cool, seemingly cool stuff does not necessarily equate into great audio. As a matter of fact, if I could say anything, it would be less is more when it comes to like processing, compression, and EQ and all of that. As a matter of fact, broadcasters are notorious for loving compression. Why? Because it makes our voice sound big and present and upfront. And hey, I get it. I'm the same way. I love the sound of my voice compressed. But you know what? Clients don't. And that's what's important. A lot of you guys, if you're already trying to do voiceover, you're shooting yourself in the foot because number one, your studio is not supreme in the equation. You don't have the quietest, best treated space you can. You bought all this equipment, but your space sucks. And that's bad. That's not good. The other thing is you're over processing your audio. You're especially compressing it. And I hear it all the time with broadcasters. So compression's fine, but make sure you use any kind of processing, be it EQ or compression or whatever the case may be, sparingly. So that's my spiel on equipment. And it's important. So make note of that if you would. Now, the second thing is broadcasters tend to have an obsession with voice. I mean, after all, we got into broadcasting because, we wanted other people to hear our voice. And along the way, we may have even fallen in love with the sound of our own voice, which is a major Achilles heel. when you're trying to be successful in voiceover. Because a lot of us, and even some of the guys, I'm thinking, and I'm 60 years old, so I've been around for a few years. Some of you guys are younger, but I hear the same thing prevalent even among younger broadcasters, be it TV or radio, and that is, hearkening back to this golden age of broadcast when everybody had the big, deep, resonant voice. And you didn't have to be a guy necessarily. I mean, you could be a woman with the big, resonant voice. But everybody, it seems, in broadcasting is pushing their voice to the back of the room. And so if they're not obsessing about equipment, there's an obsession with how you sound. Now, I wanted to share a little something with you as an example. How many of you remember Ted Williams, the man from my hometown, Columbus? As a matter of fact, we worked in radio at about the same time in Columbus at different radio stations. Remember, he was homeless on the street. He was, quote unquote, discovered because he does have an absolute beautiful voice. As a matter of fact, I spoke at an event, the same event Ted spoke at a couple of years ago in Columbus for it was a weekend voiceover workshop. And he was, again, quote unquote, discovered. He was signed to an agency. I think it might have been William Morris. I'm not sure it was William Morris, but it was a major agency. And he actually landed an account, Kraft Macaroni and Cheese. Remember Ted's voice on the Kraft Macaroni and Cheese commercials? Where is Ted Williams today? As a matter of fact, can anybody answer that for me? I mean, can you answer that for me? If so, put it in the question box. Because I have no idea where I have not heard his voice in years. And that is really my point. A golden voice does not guarantee you jack squat, to be perfectly blunt and honest. It might land you a gig. It might even land you a great job. And really, Ted was kind of a novelty at the time. I mean, the idea, he was discovered. It was a great story. I'm not saying he wouldn't have gotten the Kraft gig otherwise. He may have. But I know plenty of people with great voices who represented by the best agents in the country, in the world, and they rarely ever work. And I'm curious, Fred, did anybody respond? Does anybody know where Ted Williams is?
I see somebody, Safrida says here he was scammed by someone and back to struggling. So I don't really know, but the point is that you're right. Your point's well taken regardless.
Yeah. So don't get caught up into this idea that, well, if I just have the right equipment and if I have the right voice, I too can be successful in voiceover. Because if that's the path you follow, you've got a really, really rough road ahead of you. And what I want to help you do is understand how the industry actually works and how you can take what you have and turn it into something very exciting and something very lucrative. Okay, let me share with you something that will help you. I want to change the way you think about voiceover as a broadcaster. And what we're going to do is use the metaphor of the actor on stage. Most broadcasters view voiceover like this picture. You in front of the curtain on stage performing to the back of the crowd. You know what I'm talking about, right? You're projecting from the diaphragm. You've got the beautiful golden tones and you're announcing and you're reading and you're recording for the people in the back of the room. And whether we are cognizant of that or not, that's generally, with very few exceptions, and I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of broadcasters, with rare exception, that's how broadcasters approach voiceover. As a matter of fact, the term I like to use when I'm working with a broadcaster is one-dimensional. And I know this because this is where I come from. This was my struggle early on. I was one-dimensional. What does that mean? That means that whether you're reading a local commercial for a funeral home or you're doing a car dealership commercial, you're essentially giving the same read. And what I mean by that, now, yeah, might the speed be different? Might the volume be different? Yes. But the attitude, the point of view, the emotion in which you approach it is identical, regardless of what you're doing. And we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But that's your paradigm. What I want to challenge you to do is to change the way you approach this. And of course, we're talking performance right now. But this will literally change your voiceover future if you heed this advice and begin to think this way. Listeners must perceive you not as the show, but as the facilitator of the story. So as voiceover talent, we are not the show. We play a role. The other day, I was listening to an interview with Horace Grant. For those of you who may remember, the five Pete, the big dynasty of the Chicago Bulls. Horace Grant was a great basketball player, but he played alongside Michael Jordan, and he was very much overshadowed by Michael Jordan, which was okay because all of those guys, Scottie Pippen and Paxton, all those guys, they had a role to play. They weren't the show. They were there to facilitate the victories, but not to be up front. That's the way it is in voiceover. There's a story to be told. Usually there's a visual that goes with that, whether it's a TV commercial or whether it's a corporate video or whatever the case may be. There's usually a visual that goes with it. There's music, there's sound effects. In radio, we are used to we're it. The spotlight is on us. But in voiceover, the spotlight is not on me and you. It's on the story, which oftentimes, most of the time, is being shown through video. You must begin to think of yourself as the facilitator of that story. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to imagine yourself behind the curtain off to the side of the stage. So again, you're not up front in the spotlight behind the mic, sharing the story with the back of the auditorium. You're standing off to the side, kind of peeking out with the crowd, you're watching the screen with the crowd as the video is being shown. And you're sharing the story with the crowd as they watch it. So you're not overshadowing it. And that's one of the biggest problems that you have as a broadcaster. You want to upstage what's going on. And you don't think of it that way. You don't mean to do that, but that's what happens. We come in and we do our thing. We do our performance and we absolutely kill it. And I don't mean kill it in a good way. I mean kill it in a bad way. Like with the baby hamster that you had when you were a kid and you loved it and you petted it and you squeezed it and you killed it. You overwhelmed it. That's what we do as voiceover talent. There's so much more finesse than in broadcasting. So remember, you're the facilitator. You're off stage. You're to the side. You're kind of sharing the story as you watch it with the crowd. I hope that visual connects with you and makes sense, because if you can grasp that and begin to keep that in front of mind in your voiceover work, it will make a tremendous difference in whether you get hired for jobs or not. So challenges in transitioning. I mentioned obsession with gear, that it's not about your gear. Obsession with your voice. It's really not even it's not even about the quality of your voice. I mean, if you've got a great voice, that's fine. But being in love with your voice can actually kill a voiceover career. People don't care what you sound like. Here's the other thing to keep in mind. They don't care what you sound like. What they care about is, can they believe you? Can they believe what you're saying? Well, what does that mean? Well, they believe you if you can make them feel something. So in other words, you have to connect with people on an emotional level. How does that happen? Well, the only way to get somebody to feel something is you have to feel it first. So if you feel it, whatever it might be, excitement, fear, concern, compassion, I could go on and on. If you feel it while you're reading the script, that will resonate with the listener. They'll feel it as well. And if they feel it, they will believe you. And that's when you have the best opportunity of being hired. And then the final thing is this: you must learn to become your own best agent. We live in an exciting time for voiceover. Opportunities exist like never before. It's such a great business. And, when you have a background like you do, working either in front of a camera or behind a microphone, you're not afraid to do. The beautiful thing is the microphone doesn't scare you, which is good. But it's more than just your performance. Remember, it's about learning how to get the work. So learning how to be your own best agent. Today, the exciting thing is not only are opportunities expanding. I mean, there's more voiceover work now than there ever has been, and it continues to grow because media is so cheap to create. Video, learning media, it's being created at an extremely fast pace, and a lot of this requires voiceover. But also because of technology, the talent agents are taking their role is being minimized. Now, they're still there, and I'm not saying there's not a place for them. I've got like 14 agents myself, and occasionally I get a job through an agent. As a matter of fact, I booked a job today. I'll be recording TV commercials for Olathe Health in Kansas City through an agent that I have in Kansas City. But last year, I calculated the work that I received through agents accounted for less than 0.5% of my total income for last year. So I have nothing against agents, but I also understand that today you can directly promote yourself and market yourself to media producers because of technology. It's easy to do, with email. Plus, there are platforms, there are freelance websites that make that very, very simple to do. Fred, at that point, it might be, maybe we should take some questions. And then we could actually do some reads too, if there are people like to read a script, and we can kind of demonstrate what I've been talking about.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. But before we go on, Bill, before we do that, why don't you give some examples of some people who've come into our program that are former broadcasters, and maybe just give a few examples without naming names, just give their background and titles and things like that, to give people a feel for, who we've been working with and what kind of success we've seen.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've worked with a number of broadcasters and actors, a lot of actors and musicians as well. But with broadcast specifically, there's actually one young lady right now. Her name's Adrienne Flores. She was a reporter and news anchor in Nashville up until I think this past year, and she joined my coaching program. And as a matter of fact, today I did a coaching session for that group. We get together multiple times, each week to do live coaching, via webinar. And she's, killing it in a good way. She started off like everybody else, promoting or getting a good demo together and promoting herself through different platforms and such. And today she's consistently, I don't know if she's getting work every day or not. I don't recall if she said that, but I know she's getting multiple jobs a week, and they're getting better and better and better. We've got another gentleman who is a former CNN anchor in our group as well. And I've worked on, I don't even know how many radio folks that I've worked with. I've got a guy by the name of Eric Carl, who actually was a student of mine. I was a college professor for the last part of my radio career. I actually managed a station owned by a university, and I taught there as well. And Eric graduated. He went into to radio. He was doing, I believe it was mornings, a station out in Iowa. And I know financially it was just tough. As you guys know, unless you're doing a morning show in a major market, it's not a very lucrative career. And he made the transition into voiceover, contacted me a couple of years ago to begin coaching him, and in short order, was making more than he did in broadcasting, and continues to grow his career. And we've got a bunch of folks like that. So be it radio or television. So I guess the point is, you're not the first. The path has been paved. There are many people who are now making the switch, but only the people who understand how the industry works. Because if you come in with the same mindset that you have in broadcasting, in terms of your relation to equipment, the way you think of your voice, the way you perform, it makes it very, very difficult.
Cool. Let's open it up for some questions. So if you would, in the question box, just go ahead and put any questions that you have specifically related. And again, this is all geared to you as a broadcaster, be it in radio, TV, whatever broadcasting background you've had. So there you go. So Brandon says, I was wondering if you could speak on the subject of email marketing your demo in regards to follow-up. How many times to follow up and what to say in these follow-ups? The last thing I want to do is annoy people to the point of anger. Good question, Brandon.
Yeah, and first of all, think about a lot of people, they over worry about that. And so, there are tens of thousands of production companies out there. And if you make somebody angry, it's not it's not the end of your career. So I'm not saying you should purposely make people angry, but err on the side of being overly aggressive. But here's how I would handle that. If I send out my demo to someone, first of all, I contact and ask if they're currently accepting demos. And if so, I'll send them my demo. I may follow up in a week and say, just following up and to make sure you received it. And I don't ask them if they listen. I never ask them for anything. I never ask anybody for anything. What do you think? Will you hire me? Nothing like that. I thank them and let them know if I can ever be of service, don't hesitate to let me know. And then I don't do any more follow-up specific to the demo. What I do at that point, if somebody has given me any kind of positive feedback, like, hey, really liked your demo, thank you, if I can, we'll put you on file, anything like that, they go on an email list in which I send out an email about once a month, which I just follow up with some, generic stuff just to let them know I'm still here. So that's how I handle that.
And by the way, that generic stuff that you follow up with, Bill, we should mention to people that it isn't a sales message at all.
No.
It's more water cooler conversation.
That's exactly right. So I'm the least salesy guy you'll ever come across when it comes to this kind of stuff. I'm
And
never trying to push this on anybody.
you got it. And so therefore, as transitioning from broadcaster to voiceover talent, I know that unless you're in sales at the station, TV or radio, you weren't selling. Do you have to be selling to be successful in the voiceover business?
No, as a matter of fact, I've never used a sales approach in my voiceover business. What I do, here's the thing. It's about being heard. It's about being found and being heard. So if you can get your voice in the form of a voiceover demo, if you can get that demo in front of enough of the right people, you will get opportunities. That's the whole game of marketing. I mean, that's it boiled down. It's getting your demo in front of enough of the right people. And if you do that, you will get opportunities to audition.
Gotcha. Now, Scott is asking a question, and of course, a lot of people have, which is, and by the way, if you're out there listening to all the chatter with regards to voiceover work and everything else, this is a big topic. So, Scott's asking, what's your opinion of pay to play sites?
They're great. I've made a boatload of money from like voices.com and voice 123. However, that being said, one of the biggest mistakes people make is they make the decision, okay, I want to record voiceovers. So they sign up for an account on voices.com and voice 123 without understanding how the business or how that platform works. And what happens is 3 months later, 4 months later, and 1,000 auditions later, they say, well, this doesn't work and so they think either they think I suck, I'm not good enough, or they think this is a ripoff, or this is just, there's no room for me in the industry, none of which are true. Um, when you jump into a website like voices.com or voice 123, you're jumping into the deeper end of the pool. It's a competitive market. Now, you need to be there, but not today. You need to make sure there's a couple of things you need. Number one is when you're going to be on those platforms, you need a pro demo because that's how you position yourself against other talent to create opportunities. You also need to have strong auditioning skills, which can be learned. And the other is you need to understand how the platform works because the platform has its own way of operating. And if you don't understand how the platform works, you will audition and audition and audition and audition, and you'll be met with very little success, and you'll get frustrated, and you'll start to think that you're not good enough, which is
Now,
not the case.
yeah, now luckily, all of our people that are in within this program we have called the Blueprint are instructed on exactly how to do those steps, but we never tell people to start out and pay to play because it's like going directly into the major leagues. And I'm
Yes.
here in the Vegas area, Bryce Harper, one of few major leaguers who went directly in there without going through the minors. You have to go in general through the minors to get to the majors, right, Bill?
Absolutely. Yeah, there are very few that can go directly to the to the majors, as you put it. Very few. I
Got it.
certainly couldn't.
Yeah, no, exactly. David's question is performance coaching. How much and what is needed? So you've just talked to us about the importance or lack of importance of having a great voice. Do you need performance coaching? A lot of people out there trying to sell people that.
Yeah, well, you do. I mean, you need to understand when somebody gives you a script, how do you facilitate that story? Going back to what I shared with you before. And by the way, if we just go back to this, if you keep this forefront in your mind, it will take you a very long way toward winning an audition. Because the biggest part of learning how to for performance coaching, I don't even like the word performance because it's a bit of a misnomer. It's not with the spotlight on, singing and dancing and trying to entertain. That's not what you do. What you do, what I do as a voiceover talent is we are story facilitators. And that's what coaching should help you to learn and understand.
Okay, so Dennis is asking questions, really part and parcel of our blueprint program. He's asking, how would someone reach out to clients directly and not depending on an agent? Well, Bill's really, I mean, this program is probably the blueprint program, probably 80% plus of the programs about marketing, and very little of it, if at all, really has anything to do with agents, right, Bill?
Yeah, you to market yourself, you really got to forget the agents. I mean, if you get a pro demo, sure, send it out to some agents. If you get representation, that's awesome. I'll tell you this, true story. The first agent that signed me, I'll never forget. It was like, gosh, 12 or 13 years ago, here in the Chicago area. I sent out my demo. They're like, yeah, we like it. We want to sign you. I thought, Fred, I thought I'd arrived. I thought that was it. I thought, okay, I've got a career. I drove to their offices, had a meeting, yada, 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 started auditioning. Here I am 13 years later. Guess how many jobs I've landed with that agent?
I
Zero.
you said, yeah.
Goose egg, nothing, nada. Now, again, now there are other agents that I have. So I'm not saying, I'm not saying you will or you won't, but my point is it's not the panacea that a lot of people think, this is it. It's the promised land. No, it's not. It's just one of a number of ways that you can market yourself. And frankly, it's the most difficult way to do it. So yeah, learning how to direct market yourself to media producers and learning how to use like freelance websites and pay to play type websites is absolutely critical in building a career.
Now, a number of people are asking this question, so I won't name you all off individually, but people are wondering about what the demo should consist of. And you may want to talk about the first stage of that process of the DIY demo, and then when and how to move to get a pro demo done, and how does that work?
Yeah, think of voiceover as graduated steps. It used to be, if 20 years ago you wanted to be in the business, there were no graduated steps. You sank or you swam. You jumped into the deep end right away. Today, because it's such a big business, there's these graduated opportunities, and so much so that you can actually create a DIY demo to get started, which is what I highly recommend. Because a pro demo, and you'll need one eventually. But that's going to run you several $1,000s for a good one. I mean, well worth it. It's an investment. You'll make money. But when you're first getting started, what I instruct my students to do is to go to YouTube or iSpot.tv and transcribe 5 or 6 commercials. Don't write your own. Don't don't take these offline. People who post these bogus commercials online, call them scripts when they're made up. Find real ones with real companies online. Transcribe them and put together a 60-second commercial demo with 5 or 6 commercials. Just take 10 seconds or so of each one. And it doesn't even have to be produced with music. Some of you guys are producers. You've produced commercials. You understand how to do that. That's fine. Don't overproduce it. But better to have just good, clean audio and dry voice than, if you don't know what you're doing, don't add music. But if you do, many of you guys do, that's fine. But do your own, and you can get started on especially freelance websites like Fiverr, which I'm a huge fan of. I'm actually now making a few thousand. I made a few $1,000 my first month on there. And I'm now cultivating that as another income stream for myself. It's one of many. I call them spokes of the wheel. I have many spokes in the wheel, and that's one. But you can actually get started with a DIY demo on sites like that and Upwork.com as well.
Again, another question that's coming in from a number of different sources here relates to the fact that here you are doing coaching for voiceover talent. People are saying that, boy, there are a lot of people out there that are doing voiceover coaching. And you may want to talk to the fact that many of those people that are doing voiceover coaching are doing it because they can't get voiceover work. Can you talk about that?
Well, yeah, what's that old saying? Those who can do, those who can't teach. And of course, you say, "Well, Bill, you're teaching." I think I'd like to think I'm the exception to that rule. But yeah, I think if you're looking for a coach, one of the first things you should ask them, and this may be uncomfortable, but you have the right to as a consumer, and that is, okay, tell me about your success as a voiceover talent. How much do you make? I mean, if the goal is to make money, then you need to know what they can do, what they're capable of doing. Are they doing it just because they can't? And and that's the way it works a lot of the time. In all honesty, you'll find that out if you start asking the question. You'll find out real quickly that a lot of people they can't sustain a career in voiceover, so they coach. So yeah, buyer beware.
Yeah, and Bill, again, a number of questions on the same topic. If we're referring to voices.com and the other pay-to-play sites as the majors, the minors are some of the other ones. Explain some of those minors, but explain why they aren't really minor.
Yeah, well, I would call freelance websites more minor. They're a little easier to get started with. Clients maybe aren't quite as picky and difficult, but at the same time, they're not going to pay as much. But let me give you a specific Fiverr.com, which I mentioned before. And the reason, Fred said they're not so minor, and they're not. I've got students making 6 figures a year just through Fiverr, Now, frankly, I mean, I think that's a hard way to do it. And eventually, once you've developed the skills and such, you should definitely go for bigger platforms. But it's not it's my daughter Mallory is now making between $3,000 and $4,000 a month just on Fiverr,
How long,
part-time,
how long did it take her to get there, Bill?
a few months.
Yeah. So again, the thing is there's a lot of hubbub in the marketplace talking about how these are terrible sites and everything else. Why do you think it is that so many people poo-poo all these sites like Fiverr and the other freelance sites?
Well, one is they really don't even understand how they work, and the other is they're afraid. They're protecting themselves, and they're afraid that new people getting in are going to make it more difficult for them. And you know what? It may very well make it more difficult for them because it's getting more. There's more people in here. But here's the thing: the business is changing. They have not retooled their skill set to 2019. And so the problem is not you or me or these platforms. The problem is they've not kept up. They don't understand how to do this. And so they get mad, they get angry, they get frustrated, and they start, and they want to make themselves feel better, I guess. They try to put everybody else out of business.
Another question that we're having, again, from multiple sources here is, if you're helping, whether VO talent from a radio or TV background or anywhere for that matter, helping those people to succeed, isn't there going to be this huge glut of radio VO talent, and therefore nobody will get any work?
Well, people have been saying that to me for 10 years now, since I started coaching. And I have not seen anything like that. I mean, if anything, the market keeps expanding and there are more opportunities. No, there's always, like in anything, there's a lot of people who say they want to do it. There are a few people who actually do it and who actually get a plan to do it and follow that plan. Most people, they say, okay, I'm gonna record voiceovers, but they never get training. They never do the research. They never figure out how to do it. They just want to do it, and they think that by magically signing up an account with voices.com is going to make it happen. And there's a little bit more to it than that. So no, I don't worry about that at all.
So Bill, again, for people, and again, I see this a number of times, for those people who are in our voiceover blueprint training program, of which we have, why would you say some people, the people who are most successful, some are more successful than others, what are the characteristics of the people that are the most successful within our group, would you say?
I think it's really simple. And it's the people that are most successful are the people who actually follow the plan. Now, that may sound overly simplistic, but I've seen it over and over again. People think they can figure it out. Even after they're in the program, they're like, you know what? I think I'm going to do this instead. But the people who say, okay, and like Adrian Flores, which we just talked about, the former news anchor in Nashville, who's doing so well right now. I remember I got a little bit of pushback from her early on. I was working with her on her demo, and I remember her saying, I hate this. I do not there was a particular read in there. She said, it's my least favorite. I don't like it at all. I don't think it should be on there. And I said, Adrian, trust me on this. Because you're still hearing yourself. You're thinking like and listening and hearing like a broadcaster, not like a voiceover talent. And today, as a matter of fact, she posted something on Facebook just the other day that she's had multiple clients now come to her because they heard this particular thing that she hated so much. And that's what she's being asked now for the most, saying, I really love this. Please read it like that. So, don't let your broadcast mind get in your way.
And speaking of things getting in your way, Cheryl is bringing up a point that we hear a lot, which is, and Cheryl, let me just warn you that there are two very, very distinct camps that have evolved in this voiceover training field. One of them is the bill system that we're talking about tonight, which is get going, get money anywhere you can. And then the other people who have decided that everyone else in the market should follow their exact lead. So her question relates to your Fiverr account and whether or not you should change or put up a pen name or fake it that it's not you. What do you think about that, Bill?
Well, I say you can do whatever you're comfortable with, but I'll tell you this: my name's on mine. I could care less who sees it. Because I'm in control of my own destiny. A casting agent, an agency, nobody else is in control of my career or destiny. I am. And so I don't worry about those kind of things. I don't need them. And the thing is, you don't either. You may not realize that right now. You don't need them either, because there are plenty of media creators out there who are looking for voiceover talent who would love to work with you. You do not need a middleman to make that happen.
Now, speaking of radio, Jim is giving me a great place to segue here. Jim, thank you. How do you sell without selling? I suck at selling. I'm really intrigued. Well, you're
Yeah.
intrigued then by our system, which of course is the blueprint. So go ahead and tell people a little bit, move on to that if you would.
Okay, well, yeah, nice segue. The VoiceOver Blueprint, this is a program that we put together. Fred and I have been talking about this for a long time, and I've done a number, and Fred has been my business partner for the past 10 years. He's really, we've worked together in creating the platform for the training because I didn't want to just do a bunch of one-on-one stuff. I wanted to reach as many people as I could because I believe that what I'm offering is something really, revolutionary. It's not revolutionary to me. This is what businesses have been doing for years. But within the industry, it's revolutionary because it's stuck in such an old, outdated, paradigm. But the Blueprint is a comprehensive career training program. It consists of 70 plus hours of training, on-demand streaming, covering everything from setting up your studio to editing audio to how you direct yourself in your booth, how performance skills, and all the various. So, like Fred mentioned earlier, the bulk of it's really marketing. How you reach out, how do you say, what do you say to people to get them to hire you without being salesy. So it's that there's the training on demand, which you always have access to 24/7, but also about 15 hours of live group coaching per month in this like webinar format like we're doing now, where there's input back and forth, there's Q&A. People like today, we did a session earlier today, and Fred, I don't know exactly how many, but there, a number of students
Yeah.
wanted to read, so we read scripts.
I think we had 8 people read scripts today. And again, everybody thinks that, this business, it's got multiple components. Obviously, performance is one of them. Marketing is definitely the biggest one. And
Yeah.
gear, all of those are covered in this program.
Yeah, it is comprehensive. It's A to Z. I don't think we've left any stone unturned. But then you've got the live interactive part with the coaching. So we do that, and there's lots of opportunities. Some are just about tech, some are just about performance, some are just about marketing. My daughter Mallory actually does every other week. She does a coaching session just for Fiverr for people who are on the Fiverr platform. So there's lots of opportunities. Then we have the private Facebook group. And this is really cool because this is our community. This is where you have a chance to interact with other people like you who are dedicated to building not only their own career, but helping support others. And I do something that's unique, and we're not aware of anybody else who's doing this. And I doubt that you ever will see it happen because you actually have to be working every day to make this happen. But I stream live daily as I work from my studio. So today, I don't know if we went back into that group and looked, there's probably 6 videos, where I streamed live today, recording projects. Like today, I did some pharmaceutical company work. I did, was it Amazon? I think Amazon I did yesterday. Worked on a documentary that I'm doing. I worked on that today. I did a thing for some industrial thing for some machine that works on car air conditioner. I don't even understand what it's. It's just stuff that that I don't even know what they say, but I read them. I get paid to do it.
Let me interject to say that the cool thing also about this Facebook secret group that we have is that every time Bill goes live, Facebook archives those videos, and we now have literally thousands, I don't know how many thousand, definitely over a couple thousand hours of video that you've recorded over the past 2 or 3 years that we've had this group.
Yeah. So, and what that means is you're going to see me doing directed sessions where clients are talking to me, directing me over Source Connect or over the telephone. You'll hear all of that. I'm editing audio for clients. You'll see me, doing some marketing, interacting with Mallory, my daughter, who's also my full-time assistant. So you see all aspects of the business as I work.
One of the things that's cool, you get to see you editing as well. Now there is, like we said, I don't think there is anyone else in the voiceover training field that allows you to sit in on their sessions every single day, because frankly, a lot of them may not be working as much, but you do that. And the other thing I think is cool is whatever you want to learn something, I think the best way to learn it, whether it's golf or video, whatever you want to learn, the best way to do it is to look over the shoulder of someone who's doing it successfully. And that's part of the component of the Facebook group. Tell them the other part, the community part as well, Bill.
Yeah, so this is a chance for you to if you have questions. A lot of these guys understand have been in this blueprint for a while, And there's varying levels of, you got some people are just starting who really, they don't know what's going on. They're just getting started and learning. Some of these guys have been on here for a while, and so they know the ropes. And so you've got a community of people who can answer your questions, who can give you feedback, who can talk you off the ledge. I mean, literally, because it happens all the time, because you're brand new and something happens and you're freaking out. And then somebody says, oh, no, this is how you handle that, or this is, how that works. So it's not just me. You've got this community of people and this all of these resources and experience that are there pulling for you, rooting for you, and giving you valuable feedback.
Beautiful. So if people want to find out more, I guess I think that I haven't seen these slides. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, you can schedule. It's a free call. It's about 15 minutes just to talk, to find out whether you're a good fit for this or not. And you probably have questions as well. And so it's just a chance to dive a little bit deeper to see if if this is really what you want to do. The blueprint has been created for you, but let's find out. Let's find out if this is your best path. And so if you go to theblueprintcall.com, you can set up a phone call.
I think I'm typing it in now. Let's see if I get it right. If somebody tells me whether or not this actually goes to the right place, you can see we're well prepared here. So somebody click on that link.
Oh, it'll go there.
Oh, will it? Okay, I know,
Yeah.
but I put in the HTTP and all that other kind of stuff, so I'm not really sure. I'm going to try my own system here. You know what? Yeah, it is. Okay, good. It's working. Golly, what do you know?
How about that? How about that?
Very good. Well, I think we have actually, great session, Bill. I think we've answered virtually all of those questions. And of course, the big question is for you is this a good fit? And frankly, not everyone is. Bill, I mean,
Yeah.
I do a lot of these calls, and there are people that frankly, I'll be on the phone, I'll tell you, hey, you know what, this really isn't for you. But I can tell you one thing, which is you're very possibly a good fit if you understand two things. And I've been saying this repeatedly now, so I'll say it again, which is number one, you understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint. You're not going to start making huge money right away. If you want to do
Right.
that, buy lottery tickets. Do
Yes.
not go into this program, A. And B, I think the ability to tolerate rejection. God bless one person I spoke to who had done 503 auditions without getting a job. Now, I'm hoping that won't be the case for any of you on here, but if you get started with this business, Bill, I give your numbers out all the time. When you go to cattle call auditions, you tell me it's 1 out of 20, right?
Yes. And that's after, not when I first started. It was like 1 out of 100, but yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. A lot of information. And again, I see a couple questions that we don't have time to answer that relate to this, and maybe you can answer it more generally before we close up shop here, Bill, which is how important is a lot of people are concentrating on the performance end of this. How important is that to your ultimate success? And I can think of a story to illustrate that from a demo you did.
Yeah. I'm going to, if this was a formula, I'd put 70% of the weight of this on your marketing, maybe the other 30% on your performance. And by performance, I don't mean sound of your voice. And the story that Fred's alluding to is I actually produced a demo for a gentleman. It was a number of years ago. And I remember when the project was done, the guy didn't have a lot of natural ability, just to be blunt. But what he had a strong desire. And he understood that it was a business, and he understood that it was a numbers game. And so, I'll be honest with you. I was concerned. The last thing I want to do, I want somebody's success before I want their money, And but this guy called me back. It was a couple months later, and he said, "I just want to thank you and let you know that my business has grown so much. I've had to hire a full-time assistant." And so it was just confirmation of the fact that it's really not about your voice. Now, you hear me say that, and some of you guys will never believe me. And you're going to be focused and obsessed with the sound of your voice and the equipment you use. But at the end of the day, it's about communicating and connecting with people, but knowing how to get yourself in front of those people. Because if you don't know how to get in front of those people, you will not get hired. And I just want to say one last thing, and that is I am pulling for you guys. I know what it's like to be a broadcaster. I know what it's like, the financial struggle that goes with that, because I lived that, for many years, even though I loved being involved in broadcasting. Voiceover is an opportunity to really change your life.
And let me just say as a final thing, folks, if you get on a call with me, which this will be a call with me, there's not going to be, just similar to voiceover work, I'm not going to be trying to sell you anything. I'm going to try and see if we have a good match. Because if we don't, and many times we don't, I'll tell you and we'll part as friends, right, Bill?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, we want your success. And so let's find out. And if you are a good fit, let's make it happen, because as I said, this literally can change your life.
Bill, thank you very much. Thank you everybody for being here. We really appreciate it. And good night for now.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Night.